I'm Jimmy Bach, and this is History with Jimmy, along with my producer Chandler Holmes, and this is episode 48. And I think this is one episode that a lot of people will be thankful that we were able to preserve this. This came from a newspaper article going back over 100 years. And it's a little emotional episode, I will say that. It's about 6 girls and 2 boys that met a tragic death, and it happened locally. So we're going to start this out, and I'm going to read the story about this episode, and then at the end we're going to do something a little different. So we're going to start out. This happened in 1910, and it said, on these cold mornings of late fall, mist hangs over the Paper Mill Dam, a section of Huntington Creek, like a smoky shroud. Fallen leaves move swiftly and silently over the dark, glassy surface of the water. In the eddies of the creek, the leaves are swirled into garlands and whirled away on the current like trailing bridal veils. These garlands of floating leaves are a melancholy tribute to the 8 young people who drowned at this spot over 100 years ago. May 1910, Thursday, probably a dawning, sunny, and cool-like spring morning in Huntington Mills. 12 members of the junior-senior class of the private Huntington Mills Independent School prepared for an afternoon of boating at the Paper Mill Dam. Some of them would be graduating the following week, but this would be their final outing as schoolmates. Senior Ruth Bottom, 17, was a talented musician anxious to pursue a musical career after leaving school. Ruth's friend Maud Sutliff, 18, had also passed her examinations and would be part of the graduating class of 10. Robert Minnick, 19, the senior class president, was going to exchange gifts at commencement with 17-year-old Carolyn Coons. They had become sweethearts during the last term at school. The dam was owned by the Coons brothers, and at the turn of the century, believe it or not, this was 100 feet wide and 20 feet deep. If you look at creek today, it doesn't look anything like that. Its idyllic settings and close proximity to the school made it a popular picnic and boating spot for local children. The boating party met shortly after lunch that May afternoon and boarded a scow and a rowboat. And if you don't know what a scow is, you'll have to come to the museum. We have a picture here of it in the newspaper. The scow, carrying 6 of the students, sprang a leak and began to take on water. One of the girls began to bail it out with a small can. They were near the shore and could have easily rowed in. Things were going well until the boy who was rowing said jokingly, "Look out or we'll all drown." This frightened one of the girls so badly that she fainted. The people in the rowboat brought their craft alongside the scow to remove her, and the 5 others boarded as well. The overcrowded boat sank to almost water level, became unbalanced, capsized, and young children were thrown out. The boat shot away from them, and they were left helpless in the water. Fewer than half of them were able to swim. The girls, weighted down by heavy skirts and petticoats that were the fashion of the day, sank quickly. The boys tried to help, but they themselves were dragged down. Robert Minnick made it to shore safely, but he went back to try to save Carolyn Coons, his sweetheart. He reached her and held her above water for a while, but one of the other desperate girls clung on to him, and all 3 went down and drowned. They were later found together at the bottom of the creek. Roy Dodson, 16, the only other boy who drowned that day, had been afflicted with a crippling condition for many years, had never been able to go into the water. His brother George was able to make it to shore, but wasn't strong enough to help the others. 16-year-old Madeline Good almost saved herself. She came to shore, her head above water, when either from fright or exhaustion, she fainted and fell backwards. Iris Davenport, 17. Rachel Thompson, 16, could not be rescued in time. The screams and the shouts of these terrified young people attracted the attention of Dirk Kleintop, who was working in a field near the dam. By the time he reached the scene, only Maud Sutliff's body was on the surface of the water. The 7 other victims had disappeared from view. Maud's body was still warm when Kleintop pulled her to shore. He worked to revive her until a doctor arrived, but the effort was in vain. By the time other boats and grappling hooks could be brought to the dam, all that remained to be done was to remove the bodies and take them to their homes. The tragedy shocked and devastated Huntington Mills and surrounding communities. Nearly everyone had a friend or a relative among the victims. The week following the drownings, the week that would have been the graduation of Ruth Bottom, Maud Sutliff, Robert Minnick, the week that Carolyn Coons would have presented her bow with a pair of gold cuffs and a scarf pin was instead a week of mourning and funerals. The spring flowers that would have been presented to the proud high school graduates and their friends were instead heaped on their coffins. The paper mill dam is long gone from the banks of Huntington Creek. The dam disappeared during the 1975 flood. In an old grainy photo, Ruth Bonham wears a high-necked white lace dress with a cameo printed at the throat. Her full dark hair is pulled loosely back from her face. Her expression is open and serene. Ruth Bonham, the musician, 17 years old, was gone. On these cold evenings of late fall, on the eves of All Souls, mist creeps over the paper mill dam section of the Huntington Mills Creek with wrath-like fingers. And there's music and the movement of the water over the stones and the cry of the night birds. This is a tragic thing, and I'm sure those families were devastated knowing the children that they raised, the children that would have went on to become musicians, lawyers, doctors, teachers, whatever in life would never happen. So the list of the dead again: Ruth Bonham, age 17, daughter of Mrs. Ambrose Bonham, Town Line. Iris Davenport, age 17, daughter of Mrs. Elizabeth Davenport, Waterton. Madeline Good, age 16, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Ira Good, Waterton. Rachel Thompson, age 16, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. O.D. Thompson, Town Line. Ray Dodson, age 6, son of Mr. and Mrs. A.L. Dodson, Fairmont Springs. Robert Minnick, age 19, son of Mrs. John Minnick, Coonsville. Maud Sutliff, age 18, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Esther Sutliff, Town Line. And Caroline Coons, age 17, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Ernest Coons, Harveyville. Those who escaped death that day: George Dodson, son of Mr. and Mrs. A.L. Dodson, Fairmont Springs, brother of one of the boys drowned. Jay Coons, son of Mr. and Mrs. Ernest Coons, brother of one of the girls drowned. Darius Weitzel of Town Line, and Charles Bell of Fairmont Township. Although this happened a long time ago, and many have forgotten, the Shickshinny Historical Society dedicates this episode to these young children that passed away at a way too young of an age. And they will not be forgotten by the Shickshinny Historical Society. And if any family members see this particular episode, you can come and see the whole newspaper article that we have here preserved at the FLT Museum in Shickshinny. This is Jimmy Bach, along with producer Chandler Holmes, signing off on episode 48. And if you see this episode, please pass it on. Click the like and subscribe. And one last thing, we have had over 10,000 views on our episodes since Chandler started this YouTube channel for us. And we thank everybody that comes and views. We appreciate it. We also invite you to come to the museum or to the children's library that's free, and come and support the history of this area. Thank you very much.